Rebecca Knol from the South Australian Chamber of Mines and Energy, thanks for speaking with Flow News 24.
That's a pleasure, Ricky.
Now, we've got this release that you've sent out regarding the Pastoral Act and the concerns you've got about the structuring of the bill that's been proposed to change the Act. Can you walk us through the process of how the bill came to the Parliament and how the changes have been proposed in the first place?
So the bill has been around. The Pastoral Land Management and Conservation Act bill was last reviewed in 1989, and it governs the environmental and economic management of approximately 39 million hectares of pastoral land, which is about 40% of South Australia, so it's a significant piece of legislation. As you can imagine, the South Australian resources sector is actually a key stakeholder in the rangelands, and many people don't realise that, but we are operators of pastoral lease holders. We also operate businesses on pastoral leases, and we have substantial economic interests on pastoral lands. So for us, it's really important that the Pastoral Act is modernised, but that it also incorporates these different land uses.
So I recall we did a four-wheel drive trip through an area near Mount Torrens, and I think one of the properties there was run or owned by BHP perhaps, but it was being run still as a pastoral property. Is that one of the examples of where you're still in the game of running a livestock on properties?
Yeah, Ricky, that's a really good example where we're in the game, and it happens on a lot of our pastoral leases, largely because mining doesn't, or extractive industries don't actually take up a lot of land, but they need a large buffer zone around them. So it's quite common for us to have large pastoral leases, but only be actively using a small part of it. So we can easily collaborate with and have coexistence opportunities with pastoralists.
So to focus on the comments that came out from SACOME yesterday, you've indicated you've got a concern in the release that the bill is narrowly focused on meat and wool production. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so what we mean by that is that the way that the bill is currently drafted is that activities related to meat and wool production are approved, but alternate land uses of pastoral land can only be permitted if they support the economic sustainability of livestock grazing. So what that does is it excludes activities like carbon farming and environmental offsets. They're not specifically included in the Act, and they'll need discretionary approval of the Pastoral Board. Now, from our perspective, the Pastoral Bill needs to support a range of alternate land uses that provide environmental benefits and economic opportunities for all South Australians. And we put environmental offsets and carbon farming in that bucket. Essentially, what we're saying is it's an opportunity to modernise the Pastoral Bill and ensure that it responds to both the influence of drought, but also climate change and market opportunities.
So are they representations you'd made to government during the consultation about the drafting of the bill, and then you were disappointed it didn't come through in the draft that was released?
The consultation continues and the discussions continue. The bill was put forward and appeared to being rushed through, and that's when we sort of wade into the debate. We do have ongoing meetings with relevant persons, and we've sent a number of submissions to the Minister's office. So we're confident that we'll be able to have a positive ongoing dialogue with them. But we just wanted to make sure that the bill was not rushed through Parliament without due consideration for these additional opportunities.
Are you optimistic that the matters you're raising, these additional uses, land uses, will find a similar sort of standing in the Act to meat and livestock production?
We are optimistic, and as I said, the conversations with the relevant agencies and ministers have been productive to date. We are optimistic, but we need to make sure that they are included because they have significant benefits for our members. So we remain optimistic. I always remain optimistic in these conversations. It's important that we have the dialogue, but it's also important that when we're reviewing significant acts, and as I said, acts that take care of 40% of South Australia's land mass, it's really important that all stakeholders are heard and we have robust dialogue around that.
Yeah, so to be clear about what you're seeking to add in terms of land uses, you're not specifically looking for something favourable regarding mining itself. It's more about these carbon farming and environmental offset opportunities?
You're absolutely right. Yep, it's not about it's not about different access. We already have access to pastoral. We are pastoral leaseholders. We are a stakeholder in this act. It's a significant act for us. It's as important to us as the Mining Act. And yes, as you say, Ricky, what we're seeking is to enable innovation and adaptation in this act and ensure that carbon farming and environmental benefits are considered. Not considered within the Act, rather than having to be approved, discretionary approval by the Pastoral Board as is currently drafted.
Just looking generally at the mining industry and the exports for Australia, from a SACOME point of view, how do you feel things are looking for the industry in South Australia and nationally?
The industry is looking very strong, and later this week we will be releasing some data about the strength of the industry in South Australia and its contribution to South Australia. But what I can say is that we are 50% of South Australia's exports, so we are a significant player in underpinning South Australia's economy. We've held really strong throughout COVID. We have not had any COVID outbreaks on any of our sites, and we've managed to keep both our local communities and our Indigenous communities that we work closely with safe throughout COVID, and have been able to continue our operations with significant modifications in a lot of cases, but we have continued unabated. That's set us up really well for assisting the state with economic recovery in the months and years ahead. So things are looking good for the mining industry in South Australia. The
Chinese tariffs that have been imposed on farmers, we've talked about, but have you had a similar challenge when it comes to exports to China, or has the mining industry been largely unaffected?
The mining industry is not unaffected, but here in South Australia we've been largely unaffected. We've got quite diversified markets, so the companies that we work with here in South Australia have other markets, not just China, to provide to. So in those cases, it hasn't been a major impost on us.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, that is very good. Well, thank you very much for your time today, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, Ricky, thank you. It's a pleasure.